remember the first time I ever saw Martin in real life. It was Rory Gallagher was playing one in, I guess it would have been 1976, I think. He used to do a section in his live set where he'd play a D35. And I remember it had he was playing a, so he was playing it like that, this song out on the Western Plain. And I went to see him a few times, and each time he always played that same D35. So that was the first time I saw one in real life. I think maybe that was the first time I was aware of it, and around about the same time, you know, kids of my age, I guess, growing up in the 70s, you became aware of Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Stephen Stills, that whole kind of Californians, very American West Coast kind of thing, and they were always, to me, they were the kind of the acoustic of choice, really, the acoustic to aspire to. When the Smiths took off, I was able, of course, to get a few more guitars to augment the sound of the records. You know, as soon as I could get a D28, I did. I got a early 70s one. That would have been on, I guess, the second album, Meets Murder. I wrote so much stuff on it, you know. I wrote a lot of big songs. So yeah, on those Smiths records, when I first got the D28, first I hired it, this hire company in London, on the second album, and then fell in love with it. For some reason I always like putting the capo on the 4th fret. Yes, so on those Smiths records, when I was able to get one from a hire company, on the second record, I wrote a couple of songs on the D28. One was like Well I Wonder, which was kind of like that kind of thing. I deliberately, even though the Smiths are like an indie rock band, whatever that is, I deliberately wanted to have the acoustics when we use them. Even in rock and roll songs, I deliberately like to have them loud and usually layered, sort of capo and that kind of thing. So it wasn't just something that was tinkling around in the background. It was the sound of the acoustic is like very much like, now I'm doing acoustic. Guitars, all guitars, I think, affect the way you play. I think when you first start out, you're trying to emulate your heroes, and you get a guitar that you're inspired by uses, if you're lucky, you know. But then once you get past that stage and you're lucky enough to experiment with different guitars, so they do bring out a certain thing in you, I think. So there's a thing that I now know is a bit of a go-to of mine, but that really came from having the D28. I thought I was influenced. I was doing Bert Jansch, the British folk guitar player who had influenced Jimmy Page, and he played a Martin as well. That was another kind of touchstone for me, Bert Jansch. But I've been doing a lot of this kind of stuff. Which of course you can do you can have this approach on other acoustics, but in my mind, Martins are kind of, well, certainly Dreadnoughts and Martins are sort of built for that, because there's you want to use up a lot of the bottom end. It's not just kind of strummy stuff. I think maybe Jimmy Page was a good sort of example of that as well. So that combination of rhythm crossed with arpeggios, one-man band kind of thing, the Martin brought that out in me a little bit. There's an example of it, a 12-string Martin on the song Unhappy Birthday by the Smiths, and Headmaster Ritual as well. That is that sort of approach. I went through a period where I was just using the D35 when I was playing with Bert Jansch, and in electronic, the D28 in the Smiths days, the 12-string in the Healers and the Smiths, and then in more recent times back to the D28. But it is that funny thing of like, yeah, they are elite instruments and they are very beautiful things. Like all guitar players, we can almost fetishize these things, but they are the tools of my trade, really. And it's, as I say, I've got a couple of other acoustics that I'm very lucky to have, but I don't think of myself as playing any other acoustics. If you see pictures of me, I've been around a long time now, of course, so if you see pictures of me when I'm 21, I'm playing a Martin, or if you see pictures of me in the early 2000s with Bert Jansch playing my D35. The one thing that it's not about is about being a collector. It's about being a guitar player, and that they are what I use. And then when my son started working on records and working with Hans Zimmer and doing his own career, because it was almost unthinkable that he would use a different guitar, because he grew up around Martins, but he learned to play on those as well, and he plays in a lot of tunings as well. So Martins have always been the guitar around the house. As soon as I was able to get one, I got one. As soon as I was able to get a 12-string, I got one of those. And it just didn't occur to me to get a different brand, really. So when I came to develop, design with Martin my new signature series, which is both 7-string and 6-string, started off really with the 7-string, because Fred Green at Martin contacted me and asked me would I be interested in doing a signature, which of course is very feels very like a real privilege. And we got together, and it was great because we just had a discussion, an enthusiastic discussion about guitars, about Martins, of course, and all the different models. We weren't sitting over a bunch of plans. We weren't sitting over a bunch of photographs. It was just two guitar freaks talking. And by the end of a couple of hours, I just was throwing up things about different Martins that I liked. And I'd come up with these different aspects. So, 3-piece back, which is like a D35. The sort of dreadnought, but slightly bigger size bottom end here. One of the things I just had gotten used to about dreadnoughts was that it has a good, not boomy, but a good rich, full low end. So I knew I liked that component of the guitar. I've got smaller versions and all of this, but I like the size of that. Years ago, I really liked the idea of, I'd read about the 7-string high octave. I'd read about it being a thing from the late 50s anyway. A blues guitar player who I think was in the UK had done it, and I never tried it. So this conversation with Fred from Martin just was very inspired, and before we knew it, I was like, well, can that be done? Can I have this with this with this? So by the end of this meeting, I was like, wow, I couldn't wait to see what we conceptually devised, really. And when it arrived, the 7-string arrived the day I was doing shows with an orchestra in Manchester, and I'd already played using a Sunburst D28 the night before on a solo song with acoustic, and then the orchestra comes in at the end. But anyway, on day 2, this guitar arrived, the prototype, and I thought, do I dare use it with the orchestra? Anyway, I used it, and I mean, it just brought a dimension to that performance that I was just so excited about. So for people who are curious about what this whole 7-string thing is about, the 7-string is a high octave on the G string. It's It's got nothing to do with an extra low string or anything like that. It's this. Which, to put it simply, is what your ear tricks your ear into thinking it's hearing a similar sound to a 12 string. So if you want to really double down on the 12 string thing, and so that's making a big deal of it. But I've just got so used to it being there now, having played this at shows. What I'd say is what it does for me is it gives me this extra dimension where I feel like I'm playing my regular, well, an M model Martin, which to me, my signature guitar feels like a cross between a D35, a D28 and an M. But then my ear is telling me that it's got some sort of 12 string aspect to it. Not everyone wants to play a 12 string for a number of reasons. You know, the tuning issues, you have to apply yourself differently. Once you're in there, it's a very all-encompassing sound. But this 7 string version, the appearance of it is really nice straight away. I went through a few different samples of the pick guard, and this has almost got like an orangey faux tortoiseshell thing to it, so it's a very pleasing colour. Even the colour of the fingerboard ebony is nice and dark, which is something I really like. I almost forget that these things are really particular to me. It's deliberately got a glossy neck, not what's known as a satin neck, because I'm a bit old school and I like the idea of, well, getting a guitar like it used to be in the 70s, and then you just wear that down yourself. You know, I don't have any issue with the way that feels. So in that way, it's the neck fingerboard looks and feels like a 70s guitar. And the top is a little like a 70s guitar that you are able to just, if you want to funk it up or put your own character in there, you can do that. Because it's important to me, I don't like fingerboards that look too pale. That's just an aesthetic choice of mine. The high G octave shares the same pin as the regular G there, so you don't have a awkward pin there. We've got a Baggs pickup in there as well, which is really nicely attuned to the saddle pickup and the microphone. It's got a good little blend in there. To my ears, it's a tighter sound than a regular dreadnought, to do with the bracing and the M depth here, which is a little tighter. I'm really pleased with it because after 40 years of playing dreadnoughts, it does for me what a dreadnought does when I pick it up. But it's kind of a tight sound. So for sort of rock and roll, you know, if you're doing like, you know, all this stuff. So you can really attack it, and it's got like a good tight sort of middle sound. Well, the most rewarding thing about it, that the process of designing it was an inspired session. I wasn't scratching my head thinking, oh, what would be good? It came out of a lively, enthusiastic conversation between myself and Fred Green at Martin. It was like a collaboration. So I didn't have to sort of, you know, think too much. I just got all my enthusiasm out. And I think you get, whether it's writing a song or writing a screenplay or doing a treatment for a video or whatever, I've been in those kind of meetings before, and good things come out of them. Little details. So it feels like the product of an inspired artistic collaboration. But to be a bit more straightforward about it, I've now got my own signature guitar that makes me sound like in the studio when I've put this really great old 1176 compressor on it, or Pultec compressor with a great mic, and a little hint of high string in there. All of these things that I do on record using a few guitars, I've all got it in the one guitar that I can carry around with me, and if I go and play with a pal or go and guest with someone, I kind of sound like me.